Okay, here we go, and Jim Bowden is back at it again with the trade proposals. I've done these videos in the past reviewing the trades that he proposes, and they're usually not very good. I think he's even caught wind of one of those videos in the past because he blocked me on Twitter. Jim, I'm coming from a good place here. It's all love, my friend. It's all love. But I've been waiting for more proposals, and boy, oh boy, do we got a good one here. He says the Angels should trade Shohei Ohtani. Which teams and packages could land him? I'm going to go through all of these trades. I'm going to review them. I'm going to tell you if they're good or not. But before I do get to the trades, I'm going to go over how I'm going to evaluate them. To review these trades, I'm going to use Baseballtradevaluescom. If you've been following me for a while now, you know I love this site. But if you don't know what it is, it's simply a simulator used to evaluate trades as well as the value of players. And it's simply just used for fun to come up with your own trades. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all when it comes to evaluating trades as well as players. But I think it's a great resource that helps bridge the gap in terms of understanding how trades are put together, because different teams are going to have different philosophies when it comes to putting together their own trades. But it really, I think, just helps bridge the gap in terms of simply just understanding how this all works. So let's take a look real quick before I do get to the Ohtani trades, how they value major leaguers. So they simply use a formula. Field value minus salary is the surplus or the value of the player. So to come up with the field value, they use a bunch of different aspects. They use wins above replacement, they use projections, they use inflation, years of control, injury risk, roster risk, and then they take the salary out of that, and then that is their value. So for minor leaguers, it's a little different. So they're looking at different aspects. They're looking mainly at the position. So if you're a shortstop, you're going to have a lot of value because teams usually like to build around shortstops. And then, pitchers are going to have really good values as well. But then if you're looking more at relievers, you're going to have less value, and different positions like a left fielder is going to have less value, and so on. And then obviously you look at the performance, their injury risk, as well as the roster risk, and then it spits out the value. So just to give you an idea of Shohei Ohtani, as of right now, you're looking at a median value of 44.3. It could go as low as 35.4 or as high as 53.2. Just to give you an idea, give you a perspective here, that is the highest value ever for a rental. Shohei Ohtani is going to be a free agent after this year, as we all know. So this is a lot for a player that you're only going to have for a couple of months. But this is Shohei Ohtani we're talking about here, an amazing hitter and an amazing pitcher. So just to give you a comparison, someone like Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be way more than this because mainly, well, first off, he's a fantastic player, but he's under a lot of control. He is under control until at least 2028 because of the club options, but he's also making very little money, $12.5 million on average per year. So if you take a look here at his value, you're looking at $245 million. So you can see why he would cost a ton to get, but for simply just 2 months of Ohtani, that is quite a bit. So let's get to the different packages. Let's break it down. So the first team he mentions are the Tampa Bay Rays, and I'm actually in agreement here. I think the Rays have a very strong chance of landing him. I still consider them a bit of a dark horse because it is the Rays. They haven't really made these big splashy moves in the past. This would be like an all-time move for them. So I still have that in the back of my mind when it comes to them. But I think when you look at the prospects they have and the situation that they're in this year, I think they have a good chance. But Jim, you lose me a little bit with this package. So let's take a look here. He says the Rays system is so deep they could offer a third base prospect such as Junior Caminero or Curtis Mead, a first baseman like Kyle Manzardo, a speedy second baseman like Vidal Brujan, and any number of intriguing minor league pitchers. They might also be willing to add a major league player like right fielder Josh Lowe if needed to get a deal done. So the players that I have in this trade, instead of Caminero, who is the #1 prospect, I put Mead, and I also have Manzardo and Brujan in here. I'm wondering, Jim, I don't know if you know, but Vidal Brujan has not really worked out so much, so his value as of right now is a 0. It could be a little bit higher, but these are the 3 guaranteed players he put in here. If we go back to the article, he also lists any number of intriguing minor league pitchers as well as Josh Lowe. So if we go to maybe like some pitchers here in the Rays system, you could maybe do Mason Montgomery, maybe a lower one like a Cole Wilcox. So if I put in Mason Montgomery for here, you're looking at, you know, right around 6.3 million. And then if you did Cole Wilcox, you're looking at like 5. So I'll go with like let's go Montgomery, since he is the number 5 prospect. You know, hey, you're going to have to give up some good prospects here to land Ohtani. So let's go with Montgomery here. So if you're looking at this package, it's not completely far off. If I go to validate the trade, it would be considered a major overpay, but it would still be approved by the system. Remember, with Ohtani, you could go, he has a range. You could go, you know, to a high value or a low value. So with Ohtani, maybe this is a package that could get it done. Maybe you could switch out Montgomery for Cole Wilcox. But then, you know, where he just loses me is by saying that you could include Josh Lowe. I don't see that. Absolutely not. Like, if you go to Josh Lowe here, he has a value almost near 40 million. So that would just be completely out of the question here. I could see something along the lines here, but just adding in, you know, more than this, that you're kind of losing me there. So I think, Jim, you're on the right track there, but I think with what he was going for, I would consider that a bit of an overpay. Up next, he has the LA Dodgers, but it is being reported in the news that Artie Moreno does not want to deal with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers themselves don't even think they have a chance to land Ohtani in a trade, but you never know, things can change. However, this package here completely loses me, Jim. I don't know what the heck is going on. He goes on to say here that the Angels don't need a catcher because they have Logan O'Hoppe coming back eventually, but he thinks that either Diego Cartaya or Dalton Rushing could be included simply just due to value. And then he also includes a ton of prospects. If you remember with the Dodgers farm, it is an amazing farm system. They have multiple top 100 prospects. It is fantastic. But he mentions here having 3 pitching prospects: Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, and either Michael Grove or Ryan Pepio. And then he also includes a couple of position players such as Andy Pages and either Michael Busch or outfielder Josu DePaula. Sorry if I'm botching that, but that is a massive package. Like, that is just crazy. If you go take a look here on baseballtradevalues.com, it is not accepted by the simulator. Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, look at this. I even have Rushing in here instead of Cartaya, because if you go look at Cartaya's value, it is higher, right around near 30, while Rushing is at 24. So I mean, even with the lower value guy, it's still just so out of the question here. I mean, you got 6 prospects here. Now, this looks like a package that looks more in line with, you know, something for Juan Soto last year. Like, this is way too much. Like, this is crazy to me. I don't know. This one is so bad. I mean, you know, could you take a couple of guys out of here? You know, sure, take out Rushing out of this since you say they don't need a catcher. But you're still pretty far away. Let's take out one of the pitchers. Let's take out, you know, Sheehan, who is a major league guy. You know, I would think, you know, the Dodgers would maybe want to hang on to him. So here you're getting a little closer. This is a 4-for-1. You know, it is still, you know, it's still not accepted by the simulator. It is a little high, but you could swap out one of these guys. And here are the prospects that he was mentioning. He said either Cartaya or Rushing, so that's a 1 or a 3. Busch is at 2, Stone is at 4, Pages is at 5, Sheehan is at 6, and Pepio is at 7. And you got to remember, with the Dodgers farm system, it's one of the best in the game, and he expects the Dodgers to part with 6 out of their top 7 prospects. That is just ridiculous. Either way, that original proposal was way too much. That just shows to me there's just a lack of understanding of Ohtani's value, because yes, it is very good for a 2-month rental, but I think people are they're comparing him to, you know, what it would cost, you know, for Juan Soto last year. That was the original package that he had was closer to a Juan Soto kind of a package. For 2 months of Ohtani, that was way too much. Let's go on to the next trade. Up next, he has the Mariners, and if you remember at the All-Star game, the people of Seattle were chanting for Ohtani to come to their team, but I don't see the Mariners being serious contenders for Ohtani. If they were heading shoulders above the other teams in the American League, then yeah, sure, I could see that, but I don't see them wanting to dish out prospects for 2 months of Ohtani when they're still trying to fight their way back into the wild card race. But let's say they have a change of heart, let's take a look at the package. But, oh, man, you really lose me here, Jim, mentioning Gilbert and Kirby. To be fair, you do say a combination of two of Gilbert, Kirby, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, and Emerson Hancock. But the fact that Gilbert and Kirby are even being mentioned here, that blows my mind. Now, I don't think Logan Gilbert or George Kirby are better than Shohei Ohtani, but when I'm looking at the whole picture, Logan Gilbert and George Kirby have more value than Ohtani. I'm not saying they're better players, but they have more value considering how young they are, how good they are, and how long they have until they reach free agency, along with the fact how little money they're making. So Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, to me, are completely untouchable in a situation like this. The fact that they're being mentioned here, that just blows my mind. But he does mention Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, and Emerson Hancock. So in the trade here, I put two of those guys. I think Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, when you include both of those two, you are getting pretty close to that value of Ohtani. But I just decided to do Brian Wu, who is currently the number 3 prospect, and Emerson Hancock, who is still trying to find his way. But this package, it is still not accepted. It is a bit high here, so I think you're just doing too much. If you had Bryce Miller in here, it would be way too much. Also, he does mention a few position players as well. He has Jonathan Clase, Cole Young, and Gabriel Gonzalez. I mean, if we look at their rankings here, Cole Young is number 2. I said Wu was number 3. Gonzalez is number 4. Hancock is still the number 5. And then if you go down here, Clase is the number 11. But again, it's just too much. And but I am going to really get onto the fact that Gilbert and Kirby were even mentioned here. Either way, this is still too much. Up next, he has the Texas Rangers, and he says here, I expect the Rangers to be in on Ohtani if he's available via trade. I disagree. The Rangers are a good team this year, but over the last few years, they've been rebuilding that farm, and for them to just dish out top prospects for 2 months of Ohtani doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. I do expect them to be busy at the deadline, but I don't see them doing something like this, dishing out top prospects after you've been rebuilding it. Now, the Rangers, yes, they want to be a good team, but they want to be a sustained winner. So I don't see them doing something like this. Who knows? Maybe they do. Let's say they are aggressive and they want to go for it. Here is the package that he does suggest. And once again, Jim, you're losing me. You say here the Rangers package could include 2 starting pitchers from the group of Owen White, Brock Porter, Jack Leiter, and Kumar Rocker. I don't think Rocker would be involved in this deal. He's just got Tommy John, so I don't think he would be involved. Jack Leiter was their top pick a couple of years ago. I don't see that. So, you could do Owen White and Brock Porter, but he also says here, add outfielders Evan Carter and Dustin Harris. I mean, the fact that you're just saying Evan Carter, like, it's not even a big deal. Evan Carter is one of the best prospects in the game. He is easily their top prospect right now, and he's doing extremely well in the minor leagues this year. So kind of just like nonchalantly just saying Evan Carter, like it's not even a big deal, that kind of just blows my mind here. And Dustin Harris as well, and Justin Foscue. Now, if we're looking at this trade, it's a major overpay, especially with Carter involved. He's going to be a really good player, and he has a very high value for good reason. Like I said, having a very good year in the minor leagues. But looking at this, like, it is such an overpay here. And once again, just a clear lack of understanding of what's going on here when it comes to the values. Now, if you take out Carter, sure, now you're looking like you're getting in that range. Maybe you could even go a little higher than this. I think that's possible. But I don't know. Maybe you could switch out a couple of guys for Carter. But to me, I'm not giving up Carter if I'm the Rangers. And I don't think Rangers fans would want to give up Evan Carter. I think that's silly because that could be, one of your star players down the road. I mean, come on. He's almost major league ready too. But yeah, this is a terrible trade, especially within the division. I don't think the Rangers want to be giving their top prospect and all these other guys to the Angels. You got to think of it that way too. This to me, no bueno. And looking at where these guys rank, Evan Carter is the number 1, Owen White is the number 2, Porter is at 4, Leiter is at 5, Foscue's at 6, Harris is at 7, and even Rocker is at 9. So yeah, this is just too much. Up next, he's got the Yankees, and Buster Olney did report recently that the Yankees would be the most motivated motivated to go after Ohtani, but you got to remember with Buster Olney, he likes to throw stuff out there for the clicks. He likes to get the ratings for ESPN, which is complete and utter garbage these days. But I don't know if I see Brian Cashman really going after Ohtani. It's not really his style to go after these expensive rentals. He likes to go more after these guys that are under more contract control, like Joey Gallo, like Frankie Montes. He went after Luis Castillo. He did trade for a rental in Anthony Rizzo, but Anthony Rizzo, was a guy that wasn't going to cost you all that much, and you could see yourself re-signing him in the offseason, which they ended up doing. So I don't know if I see the Yankees doing this, but it is the Yankees at the end of the day. They could do something crazy. He would help their team. They are slumping lately, so Ohtani would be a big lift. So who knows? I think more likely not. But let's take a look at the package here. He says here, a package of Jason Dominguez, Spencer Jones, Austin Wells, Oswald Peraza, and a pitcher like Clark Schmidt. This is a massive overpay. The big piece going back to the Angels would be Peraza, but you got to remember with Peraza, he has a lot of value still because he is a shortstop prospect. Remember what I said earlier? Shortstop prospects tend to get more value just because of the position that they play. That's a position that you could build around. So he is going to carry a lot of value here. The number one prospect in Jason Dominguez, this is a guy that they seem like they want to hang on to. Hasn't fully broken through yet, but this is a guy that has a lot of potential. Austin Wells, catching prospect, that's a solid prospect. Spencer Jones seems to be a guy that the Yankees are really high on. And then, throwing in a pitcher like Schmidt. Again, this is a massive overpay. It's not accepted by the simulator. Let's say, you take out someone like Peraza in this deal. You're getting closer to that range. It's still a bit too much, but if a team wanted to really go for a big overpay, we've seen big overpays before. Look back at the Luis Castillo trade with the Mariners. They threw in, Edwin Arroyo, and that really was a massive overpay. So I could see something like that happening. I know I've said overpays a lot in this video, but when it comes to the level of overpay, I just think that was a bit too much along with the other teams that I've mentioned. But, for the Yankees, I just personally think that they're not going to go after him. But like I said, it is the Yankees at the end of the day. But as for the trade, once again, I'm going to call it way too much of an overpay. Up next, he mentions the Braves, and he says here, expect them to do their due diligence, but not be in the mix if Ohtani is traded. I agree with Jim there. I think the Braves, they've been shelling out a lot of prospects over the last couple of years. This isn't really their style to go after a big rental like this. So I agree. I don't think the Braves are going to be involved. Up next, he has the Giants, and he does say here, I question whether they would be willing to unload their farm system or if they'd even have enough to compete with the other teams that would be pushing for him. Now, I disagree with the part where he says if they'd have enough. They definitely have enough to get a deal done. But I do agree with the fact that I don't think the Giants would be willing to unload prospects. They come off as an organization to me that wants to give the money to these big-time players like Aaron Judge. They landed Arson Judge, though, and Carlos Correa, so they're willing to spend the money. I don't know if they want to spend the prospects, but he does mention a trade here. And boy, oh boy, is it a massive overpay. He says, Kyle Harrison and Carson Wisenhunt, shortstop Marco Luciano, and outfielders Luis Matos and Grant McCray. I honestly think this is what Jim just did. He went to MLB Pipeline. He just put the top 5 prospects in. I don't even think he really even looked at it. I just think he copied and pasted the names and just put them in a trade. This is a horrible trade. This is such an overpay. The Giants, if they see this, they're probably just going to laugh themselves to the bank. You are giving up way too much there. These guys have a lot of value. Harrison is your number 1. Luciano is your number 2. Matos, he's going to be really good. These guys are all going to be really good. He is your number 3. And then he also has your 4 and the 5. Like, this is way too much. It is incredible to me. Again, the lack of understanding of valuing these minor league players. These guys have been really good, and they're going to be good for the Giants down the road. Once again, this is just awful. Up next, he's got the Orioles, and I agree with what he said here. He says there is no way they're going to deal away a lot of the young talent they've accumulated over the past 4 years. Same thing with the Texas Rangers. They've been rebuilding their farm. I just don't see the Orioles really making a move like this. Up next, he's got the Padres, and he did say here they significantly depleted their farm system last year in the Juan Soto trade, and it's hard to see them doing it again. So I agree with that. I don't think the Padres are going to be in on this. They're going to wait until the offseason, I think. But he does mention some players here. And once again, everyone, it's really bad. He says they could start the conversation with shortstop Jackson Merrill, catcher Ethan Salas, and pitchers Dylan Lesko and Robbie Snelling. He says all 4 are top 100 prospects, and you already know what's going to happen. Because they are top 100 prospects, they're going to have a ton of value. Jackson Merrill, again, shortstop prospects, they are going to have a ton of value, and he has a ton of it, $55.8 million. And then you got Salas, and again, catching prospects are going to have a lot of value. So these two together is already an incredible overpay. But then he also includes a very talented young arm in Dylan Lesko, who was drafted recently, and then Snelling, who's a very solid pitching prospect as well. These are the top 4 prospects. So again, I think he just went to MLB Pipeline. I think he copy-pasted the names and just put them in the article. I don't know. Like, I don't even know what else to say. This is just getting bad. And last but not least, he mentions the Reds, the Marlins, the Diamondbacks, and the Guardians, but he doesn't see those teams giving up the prospects. And I agree, it's not really their style. They value their farm systems. I just don't see them getting involved in a trade for Shohei Ohtani. So in the end, where we find common ground is we agree on these teams that probably won't get involved, but when it came to these packages, that's where you lose me. To me, it shows a clear lack of understanding of the value of these minor league players. And I think just the sports media, they're looking at Ohtani, the player. They're looking at quite possibly the greatest player that ever lived. But when it comes to valuing a player, you need to look at all aspects, not just how talented the player is, but how long you're going to have him. And due to the lack of contract control, yeah, his value is going to be lower, but for a rental, it's extremely expensive. Again, it is the highest value for a rental of all time. So just remember that with Ohtani, you're only going to be having him for 2 months, so it's not going to be as high as someone like Juan Soto was last year when the Padres acquired him. So that's all I have for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Tell me some trades that you would like to see happen or that you think would happen for Shohei Ohtani. Tell me some teams down below in the comments. But that's all I have for right now, everyone. If you can, hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.